you have an editor now for Waxworks Comics.
Mm-hmm.
And got House of Waxworks #2 here.
Yeah.
I love the art. And tell me a little bit about being the editor over there.
Well, the cover art there is by Jonas Scharf, who you might have heard of. He does a lot of work with Boom Studios. He's currently on Bone Parish with Cullen Bunn. House of Waxwork is an anthology comic. Each issue consists usually of two 14-page stories, or roundabout. And we've got some great rotating cast of creators coming in and doing those shorts, because whenever you work on shorter pieces, you can often get people whose schedules are otherwise pretty booked. Like, they can do the shorter piece, but they may not be able to do a series, right? So that's neat. I have a particular obsession with anthologies and horror comics. When I was at Dark Horse, I was the editor of the Creepy and Eerie archives, and we used to scan and clean the original great art by people like Bernie Wrightson and Richard Corbin, just amazing stuff. So when I was asked to do a book like that with Waxwork, I said, "You got to be kidding!" My job description, my resume actually fits exactly what you're looking for, because they said we want it to be like Creepy and Eerie, and I'm like, you don't say.
What a surprise! I've done something similar.
Yeah, but to explain Waxwork for a second, because it is quite a unique publisher. Waxwork Comics is a division of Waxwork Records. Waxwork Records started in New Orleans a few years ago, and a remarkable, amazing success story. They're producing vinyl soundtracks to classic horror films.
Oh, wow.
Now they do even more than that, but that was the foundation, as far as I understand. And beautiful, crazy vinyl and psychedelic colors and designs. And the record sleeves would be created by comic artists. So Francesco Francavilla has done a lot with them. And over the past few years, they've just gotten bigger and bigger, and the fans are so rabid and hungry for this stuff. I mean, this weekend at New York Comic Con, they released the soundtrack for the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle films with all new original art everywhere by Kevin Eastman.
Wow.
And I'm just, like, blown away. And it was a double disc set. Like, each of the discs were, like, records were, like, one was, like, red, one was, like, gray, and it looked like cement and, like, crazy cityscapes. So there's a big design element there. So that was their foundation. And Kevin, one of the founders of the company, had a real passion for comics, and a lot of comic creators kind of knew him because he would get them to do art for the records, right? So he decided he wanted to launch a line of comics, and it started with House of Waxwork, which you see there. After that, he decided that he also wanted to start doing creator-owned series. And Poser, which I have here, is the first of those. And you see the creative team: Matt Miner, Clay McCormick, Doug Garbach, Taylor Esposito. A lot of people you might recognize the names from the indie comics community, right? And this is their creator-owned series, and it's amazing. It's like a homage to slasher stuff, but it's all with music scene involved. And one of the reasons for that is all of these comics come with original soundtracks created by punk bands and by metal bands.
That's awesome.
And some of them are really prominent too. And you can buy these comics directly from Waxwork, and if you do, you can get the vinyl soundtrack to the comic with the comic itself, which is what we've got here. Now, more recently, Waxwork Comics have branched into comic shops, Diamond Distribution, and in that case, you're going to buy a comic that looks more like this, and you're going to go for the digital download rather than the vinyl, and that helps. People have different price points they want to pay for comics, but also not everyone's into records, so it gives an option there.
Absolutely. That's so cool.
That's my bit about Waxwork, but yeah, I'm the managing editor with them, and it's a line of horror comics, so.
So how did that come to be? How did you kind of like become managing editor there? Like, what was the process in them hunting you down and finding you?
Yeah, I personally kind of researched what is a managing editor, because I had been an associate editor before, and I kind of understood what that meant. But I wanted to get advice from different friends, so I reached out to different editors who I trusted in comics, like kind of quietly, and said, "Can you tell me what this means?" Because I'm not sure, because I hadn't accepted anything. I didn't know what I was going to do. But basically, the person who had preceded me in the role had the title of managing editor, and they're interested in having a managing editor because as their line expands, there could be more oversight and managerial stuff going on, like other editors doing different lines of things. So kind of, since they're at the earlier stage, they wanted to go ahead and set that up as a structure. But if you're a managing editor, it does mean that you're more involved in production, the production values and looking at proofs and stuff. all editors do that to some extent, but I think the managing editor is going to be someone who's looking at schedules and things a bit more, and also keeping an eye on the promotion and release dates.
Oh, wow. So you're doing it all.
Yeah, well, things like the previews, blurbs that you need for Diamond and all of that. Some editors, depends on the company, do that, but a managing editor definitely has to make sure, if they don't do it themselves, that someone does it at the right time and that sort of stuff.
That's really important because you have to get the books out there and get people to know about them.
Yeah, we love making comics. Comics are our heart, but if you don't think about the practical stuff, who's ever going to get them?
Exactly.
You're never going to reach the audience. So.
And so, like, what's the process and like getting the book like out there through Diamond? Like, was that because that just happened recently?
Yeah.
So that's super exciting. What was the process like getting it through Diamond?
Well, I had worked on those sort of things before at Dark Horse, but through middlemen. I didn't do directly business with Diamond, and I knew the bits and pieces that were necessary. Like, you have to have a certain items that you're handing over to use for promotion. But this time around, it was new and different. And what I discovered is that it's actually, in some ways, incredibly easy to work with Diamond, which I'm happy to report, because a lot of people, are probably listening to that and wanting to say, I want to reach out to Diamond. Well, you should, because guess what? On their website, there is a portal that you can directly access that gives you all of the instructions for how to get your book into Diamond for the first time.
Oh, that's awesome.
And, they do require a fair amount of material to do that and you to answer a lot of questions, but it's like one big package of information that you can prepare. And once you get that ball rolling and you're talking with them, they'll let you know if they still need stuff, if they didn't, get all the documents, they weren't the right resolution, something like that. And it's a good idea, just as a tip, if you're trying to do that, to have the first issue of whatever it is totally ready, because they really like it if you send them a proof of the first issue.
And they can see the quality, they can see that this is something for real, and because I'm sure, as they get a lot of submissions from people who are like, oh, I'm interested, I'm going to get to it, I'll let you know when I have it in 2 years, and you're like, well, we have a book to put out in 3 days, so are you in or out? And they're like, well, we want to be in, but we don't have anything yet. So, like, well, let us know when you have something.
Yeah, it's not for people who are just mildly prospective about it. It's for people who are definitely wanting to get on and they have their own production schedules and they know when their books are going to be ready. But even once you start doing that process, you got to be a little bit patient. It will take a few months to get that stuff rolling. It may not be as fast as you initially want it to be, but once it does get rolling, you have predictability, you can do the marketing, and you also have the prestige of being with Diamond and being in the comic shops, which is great.
Yeah, it's crazy because they get sold around the world that way, and I remember when my first books were going through Diamond, like what a thrill it was when I had like books coming out and like fans coming and writing me from like Norway or the middle of Europe, and you're like, really, you guys get my books? It's like, that's crazy, but it's really a thrill.